I mean, if you check the estimate from my task force is that we have a loss. We owe parents 100 million, but we can nearly trace 92 million on it. Although it will be nearly very difficult, nearly impossible to recover this money, but at least we made an effort to trace where that money went to a large degree. But remember, Your Honor, we didn't get access to, we would have gotten a more concise answer. My task force would have gotten a more concise answer if we got access to the account, basically, because at the tail end of the task force, the trustees, especially the principal trustee, was not cooperative, and the bank will not give us access to that account, despite even our efforts to look for forensic auditors, because you need forensic auditors, so that you can tally what is in the receipts and what the bank says. So we didn't achieve that because we didn't get access to the bank.
So I want you to confirm this point. How much?
So, Your Honor, it is a bit difficult for me to say because we are using what is in files, what is in records. We didn't get access to the bank, so these are estimates. What my task force is giving are indicative. It needs to be ascertained with a proper forensic audit.
And how much
of
the
that
task
account.
force estimates to help you in the program?
Actually, by looking at the figures here, it's close to 8 million. If we have recovered all these monies, then we'll just be looking at a shortage of 8 million, assuming, but if it's difficult to recover this money from parents. I think the trustees made some attempt at some point.
No, let me take it back to something that
English.
I swear
I swear
that evidence I will give
that the evidence I'll give
in this court
touching the matter in question
shall be the truth,
shall be the truth,
nothing but the truth.
nothing but the truth.
So help me God.
So help me God. John Obed Barorot.
Mr. Barorot,
I come from Uasin Gishu. I'm a consultant in Nairobi, in ICT.
previously,
So previously, up to 31st of August, I was the Deputy Governor of Uasin Gishu from August of 2022 up to end of August of this year, 2024, when I opted to resign to pursue personal interests. Pardon?
when did you start the program?
So once we took office, the governor and myself as deputy, there were so many complaints from parents and from students who kept on coming to the county, including even writing petitions,
What was the nature of your complaints?
complaints about the Uasin Gishu overseas training program, students to Finland and Canada, particularly.
What were they complaining?
They were complaining about that they are paid money, but they are not proceeding. They have been waiting for a while, and they are not proceeding to go to school.
You, at that point, seeing the deputy governor, did it take time to understand what was going on?
So because of the number of complaints and all this, we started by December. It became apparent that the problem was bigger than we had initially thought.
December which year?
December 2022. That is when His Excellency the Governor saw it fit to form a task force of 11 people, including 3 parents, representative of parents, plus various employees, total of 11. And in the first meeting, I was made the chairman of that task force, which was created by the governor.
When was this task force constituted?
We received the letters actually on 9th of December 2022.
Now, before court have a letter, I want you to look at this letter. Tell the court if it's the same letter you received.
Yes, it is assembled.
You would like to mark the letters here if I wanted to. And from the letter, what were the terms of reference? The task
So,
force?
to look at this overseas education program, look at the problems, come up with possible short-term solutions, and also propose a long-term solution to the program. So it's both short-term and long-term.
And were there timelines within which you're supposed to work within?
So in the initial letter, we were supposed to complete by December 2022, because at that time, the enormity of the problem had not been ascertained. But after having several sittings as a task force, it became very clear that the problem cannot be solved within the period, and the period had to be extended.
No, let's go
Indefinitely.
back to 9
Yes.
December 2022, when the appointment for the task force was made. I want you to take the court through the process and how you began the, let me call it, the investigation into the overseas program,
Yeah.
step by step.
So, Your Honor, so in our first meeting, when I was elected to be the chairman, we decided now to be able to understand, we engaged various stakeholders. The stakeholders included the trustees, because it's a trust which was formed. We met the bank, which is KCB in this case. We met some parents and students. We even met the neighboring county, Elgeyo Marakwet, where this program had started before. So we engaged several stakeholders in the process of understanding this program, and that is when it became very clear, after several meetings with the task force, that it could not be possible to complete it by the same December 2022.
What was the outcome of these engagements with the stakeholders?
So first of all, we understood the genesis of, Your Honor, we understood the genesis of how the program started. It was actually borrowed from what had been done in Elgeyo Marakwet, but with some modification. So
Now, I want you to tell the courts, this is what you found out. This is how the program started, being the chairman of the task force. It's like you're reporting to us the findings.
yes. So Your Honor, so we found out that a similar program started in Elgeyo Marakwet, but they encountered some headwinds. In fact, even the agent, part of the stakeholders that we met, Your Honor, were the agents. We met Max Global and we met Skilda. We also talked to the universities involved, both in Finland and in Canada, as part of that engagement. The genesis of this program is similar to what had been started in Elgeyo Marakwet, but the modification which was done, and I think it was well-intentioned, was that in Elgeyo Marakwet, when it started, they received the money in what we call the CRF, the accounts of the county. And it took them a very long time to get the money from government, because once you receive funds, it comes as on-source revenue. So this was corrected, and the plan of creating a trust was to avoid that complication that Elgeyo Marakwet encountered when they started a similar program.
So now tell us how the Uasin Gishu program started.
So it started by the then governor, who is a senator now, with a team from the county visiting Finland in 2019. That's what we found out by talking to all those stakeholders. So it started by a visit in 2019 when several MOUs were signed with several universities, but this was organized in conjunction with the agent used in Finland called Max Global. Later on, Skilda was onboarded.
So after signing of the MOUs, what happened next?
So after the MOU, so before the MOU was signed, the agents that we have in Finland were the ones who go to find out the universities, Your Honor. They go find out the university, organize a program. After organizing a program, because Finland was a special, the organizing special programs for Uasin Gishu County only. So after they organize with the school, then they come and advertise in the county, in the newspapers. They advertise that now we have this program. These are the requirements. Please apply. So when they apply, the university would send their agent, and they were doing interviews. The universities themselves were doing interviews, competence-based interviews for potential students in Uasin Gishu. After they pass those competency is when now they can be told to pay the fees, the trust account.
So one question. You're talking about agents in Finland
Yes.
conducting interviews.
But the actual evaluation was done by various universities.
And back in the county, do you know how these students got to know about these interviews?
It was advertised in the daily newspapers.
And did you also find out whether there were any payments which were made for one to attend these interviews?
Yes, we found out. So in 6,000 and 9,000 shillings each for them to be eligible to be evaluated.
And where was this money being paid into?
Being paid to the Uasin Gishu Overseas Education Trust.
Okay.
There is one trust account in Kenya Commercial Bank which was used to manage the program. The students were informed that those who have been successful were informed, and now they needed to pay the money, Your Honor, to that trust account. And it is only after paying the money that the organization to apply for visa, to apply for biomedicals, all that would start.
You say
Between 900 and 1.4 million shillings, but it was based on, because there are some who are going for diploma, some were going for degree in nursing. Diploma in nursing, degree in nursing, so the amounts varied.
And were these students aware why they were paying this money?
But first of all, included in that money was a mandatory, they needed to do a mandatory program called Pathway, Your Honor. Pathway is to learn the Finnish language and learn the culture of Finland, and this was mandatory for all students. And there was part of that money that we were paying, because this was mandatory, and this was being done online. And after doing the pathway, they would be examined. They would be examined and they get credits. In fact, most of the students, if you look at the pathway portal in various universities, they have different credits, Your Honor. But this was even before the visa application started. So they needed to do and pass the pathway fast.
And these pathway studies, who was offering the course?
So it was being offered online, but it was offered by the universities, the various universities, online, while still in Kenya, Your Honor.
And were there representatives of the university within the county, or it was someone else who was handling that one?
They were only there during the evaluation, when they are taken into the program. Then they were given login passwords and usernames. Then they were doing online. This was an online program, purely online. So there were no representatives from the universities from Finland. This is specific to Finland. Canada, they speak English, so they didn't have a similar, it's a different path for
So
Canada.
who are running this program back in Kenya?
So we had the trustees. The trustees, actually. This Uasin Gishu Educational Overseas Trust, which is formed, has trustees. And this, one of them was a principal trustee, and that was actually the main person responsible, including
Who was this main trustee, the name?
Martin, Meshach Ronald, Lele. But the trustees were 6.
Okay.
But the ones who were signatories were the ones who were very active in running the program, Your Honor.
And now, after doing the pathway studies, what were the students supposed to do next?
After doing the pathway studies, So there was a pass mark of how many credits. After they get a pass mark, then now, and after paying the fees, then the journey of applying for visa, where you have to do medicals, apply for visa, would now commence, particularly for the cohort, because they were grouped in cohorts. So most of the cohorts were 25. So once you get a class of 25, they would actually do it as a group after passing the pathway. So they apply for visa, call for medicals, get insurance.
You said after paying the fees, they would start the application for the visa, right?
Yes.
Was there any documentation that these students are receiving from the county upon payment of fees?
So they were receiving, because this program was between the universities and the county, was indicated as a scholarship. So they were being issued scholarship letters from the county government.
Did you get to see sample letters? These letters you're calling scholarship letters.
Yes, we got to see.
What were the letters all about?
You see, the whole thing, when we interrogated the trustees, Your Honor, the whole idea was fabricated on how to get to go for these studies without having to provide, parents having to provide bank statements. So the MOU signed with the universities was signed between county government and the universities. Then when they went for visa application, they had to carry a letter indicating that they are being sponsored. But it is the parents who are paying fees, and this was made very clear to the parents that they will be paying the fees. So this scholarship certificate, which was issued, and the MOUs with the universities, was to enable, most of these parents are parents who didn't even have bank accounts. Most of them were doing this through Arambe. So it was a simpler way of enabling them to be able to get visas without their parents having to provide the bank statements, which is normally the norm all over the world.
So the students have been given a letter of scholarship. They've applied for their visas. What happened? What used to happen next?
So after now finalizing with the university, so the university will okay, first of all, the agents in Finland, Skilda and Max Globe, especially Skilda, were also organizing for accommodation, at least for the first 6 months for the students when they arrive. So they were the ones sourcing for accommodation using various agents in Finland. One of them was called Forenum, who organized a lot of accommodation. So the accommodation had to be ready before the students in a cohort would travel to go to the university in Finland. But they would go as a cohort, unlike Canada, where they were going individually. And then on this other side, the parents were not trusting the trust account anymore. So they were not willing to pay any money to that account, while the universities wanted money to be paid for students who are already abroad. So one of the first tasks that we had to deal with was to talk to the universities, and we were candid enough to the universities via Zoom. We had many Zoom meetings by members of the task force, including even some parents, and we talked to the universities and we said, this was not a scholarship. This is sponsored, paid by the parents. So at some point, we managed to convince them, and then they said, look, we will accept the new government. You have come out and you are being truthful and saying that this is not a scholarship as it has been indicated. Now that that is the case, can the fees be paid? So we said, we negotiated to get additional time, so that now we can convince the parents, Your Honor, who was very hesitant, ways to pay any money to their account. So we put parents into the different universities that they belonged, the many universities in Finland. Then we told them, please, can you elect your representative, chairman and treasurer and secretary, which is minuted, and they have all the university did that. Then we told them, can we, because we were very, I must say, the trustees, especially the signatories, were initially very cooperative actually. And so we could tell them, could we have accounts under the trust as sub-accounts for each university, but managed by the parents? And they were very supportive. So we write recommendations from the task force to the trustees, and the trustees would write to the bank to open those euro. And you see, the initial trust account was in Kenya shillings, so there were a lot of challenges around exchange rates, Your Honor. So we managed to open additional 11 accounts in euro and in Canadian dollars under the trustees, but managed by the parents, but with one person we requested as a task force. We requested the finance director in the county by the name Ronald to be the third signatory in each of the accounts. And we recommended to the trustees that each of the accounts can only be actioned by all the three signatories signing together. And Ronald really assisted a lot in ensuring, the Ronald of the financial director, in ensuring that paperwork is raised, what money is being paid, and to date, those accounts are still very active. To date, the last one I checked in August, those additional accounts have transacted well over 268 million shillings, and they continue because parents are still paying fees for their students, for their children in Finland. Similarly, the students, Your Honor, in Finland and Canada, because we opened euro accounts and dollar accounts, they are able, when they get some vocational jobs, they are able to pay into these accounts so that their fees can be paid. Now, one other thing that we requested the universities, because initially the fees was being paid for the cohort, Your Honor. So we requested that let's individualize it, so that when we pay fees, we pay per student. So all these accounts managed by the parents, Your Honor, are, when they are paid to the universities, it is paid with the student's name. So there is no ambiguity anymore of who paid and who didn't pay, because it's being remitted. And we also told the universities that let's deal with the students on an individual basis, so that we are not dealing with the whole class, the whole cohort, Your Honor.
Mr. Barorot, you being the chairman.
Yes, it is, Your Honor.
You know, he had not served the defense.
So, as even summary, there were, Your Honor, there were a total of 823 students in this program, because eventually we produced a list of all students who are in this program, and there were 823. The total number of students who went to Finland is 323 out of the 823. And the total students who managed to go to Canada are 61. Those are the ones who actually went physically, from a total of 823.
And the 303 students, you're talking about the ones who went to Finland. Do you remember the time in which they traveled to Finland?
By the time the task force was formed, already 202 were in Finland. Those are some of the ones who are
still under the trust, on the case of the trust, or the program.
I would say the mandate of the task force was focused more to solve a problem at hand.
Yes.
Problem at hand was all these 823 students and their parents who had paid money. So we focused on solving the problem but not focusing so much on the investigation of other issues around it. So it was not really under the mandate.
Yes. I'm sorry, perhaps maybe I should have made it. I'm not going to restrain strictly most of my questions may come from this task force, but others I'll ask you by virtue of you being the former deputy governor. Just if you know, not necessarily because of the task force.
And that's why, Your Honor, I'm answering and saying, when we met the trustees, we realized they have their own problems. And we said we want to focus on how to salvage and get this program running, because there are human beings involved. These are children who are, I'm telling you, these children, because I spent a lot of time on this program, these children were not living in their homes anymore, those who had not traveled. They had to be taken away from Uasin Gishu. They could not go to church, they could not go to shopping centers, they could not, so they were being hidden away because Arambe's were done for them and they were just avoiding this. So the focus of my task force so much was solving the problem for these wananchi of Uasin Gishu who are suffering. So we didn't really go into the legalities of the house. It's what we call the County Revenue Fund, the CRF in Central Bank. The controls around it of how to get money was, so it took them more than 1 year, and we listened to the people of Elgeyo Marakwet. It took them more than 1 year to convince actually the control of budget, bank statements in the first instance. So they created a trust in good faith that it is modifying the one for Elgeyo Marakwet.
Yes. So you actually...
But who had been enrolled.
Who had been enrolled.
Yes.
So there was a bit of movement post the time that he left. Now, the question is, for these students to travel abroad, of course they had to get visas. Can you explain how this visa fees for the 123 students?
Your Honor, let me pick one of the universities because I know all of them by heart. Otaniemi. So there was...
Otaniemi is in...
Otaniemi is part of Laurea University. It's in Finland.
Finland, yes.
So there is a cohort of students who were already enrolled, they passed, they got their visas, but they were not allowed to travel. So after doing the pathway online, they were made to do their first semester online here in Kenya.
Yes.
And there was some bit of delays in getting the visas. And let me explain, Your Honor, what the delay, because we spent enough time on this. So the embassy, Finland embassy changed the rules for getting visa along the way. So the first group, they were not required to have any individual bank accounts. Then this group, which was delayed, they started now saying each student, based on what they were doing, should have an account with a minimum amount of 480,000, and some of them 960,000 in their names, the students' names. And remember, these are students, Your Honor, their parents didn't have even bank accounts. So what it was to take this pool of money in the trust account and created something called locked accounts in KCB for this, in the name of these students, so that some of them were loaded with 480,000 shillings, some of them were loaded 960,000, but the understanding was that they could not get access to that money. This was just to tick the box at the embassy. Eventually, all that money was returned to the Kenya Shillings Trust account. But this caused delays, and that's why some of them had to do their first semester here in Kenya. In fact, those were the ones who were crying the most when we were getting most of these complaints. Because they were crying, they are saying, will we ever really travel? Yes. Because these are students who really help.
Yes. Now, I'll go back to my question. My question is this. You have money in the trust account, be it the previous account or the one that was opened with the parents, as you have mentioned. Now, you need to pay for visa for a particular student. How was money moving from that account to the embassy for payment of the visa?
Now, Your Honor, so after sitting with the team in front here, and I want to explain, Your Honor, I said Lele is not a signatory.
Yes.
It's Joel Luther, so let me correct that.
Yes, I was actually coming to that, but since you've mentioned.
So, now, you know,
Lele, the second accused person, he had mentioned before that is a signatory, but,
It's joint router who
but
is.
he's not.
Yes. So, you know the embassies don't accept any checks or bank transfers from any account. So when we interrogated the administrative trustees who are managing this program, so they said that when they were going to pay for visa, they had actually to cash out money and go and pay on behalf. Remember, these students were going in cohorts, either 25 or whichever number it was. So they were making arrangements, go to the bank, withdraw the money, put it in M-Pesa or wherever, but they were like a cash form, because when you go to the embassy, they could not accept any bank transfer or any check.
Any
so,
check.
so they made.
So you're saying the money had to be withdrawn from the account and given to either transferred to somebody's account for him to go and cash it out and pay to the embassy.
Yes, but I want to put a rider to it. The actual amounts of what was withdrawn in their names can only be ascertained with that forensic audit of the account.
Okay.
This is just what they were telling us,
Yes.
property, when we were fact finding as a task force.
Okay, now away from them, what was the visa payment made?
So actually most of those who went after,
Yes.
their visa payments,
Now,
except
speak about the few who were not among the most. The few who traveled and the money had not been paid by them. How was money paid?
so like I said, since they cannot accept any checks,
Yes.
so the similar arrangement.
The similar arrangement proceeded after they had actually even left.
When you say left, I think you are misleading the court, because
I don't
the
mean
same trust post both governments, because it's a legal entity, you know,
Yes,
they are still there, they are still trustees.
Okay. Oh,
In
sorry.
fact, most of the recommendations we are making to the trustees, even all these opening the accounts and all, even the parents
Yes.
who are managing the accounts,
Yes.
those accounts are in the name of the trustees. So to me, trustees is a legal entity that exists
Legal entity.
even now.
Notwithstanding who is the current governor, previous, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
But the current government proceeded with the same formula as the previous government on at least payment of visa fees.
Because this is an entity, this is a program
Okay,
that is running.
I understand it. Now, it has been mentioned, many parents didn't seem to understand it and all that. Now, explain just a bit, when a student has undergone the pathway studies, and as you said, some students even started studying here online, was the fees for that semester utilized, or they are entitled to a refund, to the best of your knowledge?
So, thank you very much. So, Your Honor, pathway for all students to Finland was mandatory. And it was a fee which was ranging from 3,000 euros to 3,950 euros based on the university and the program. This was mandatory. The money was paid to Edu Excellence.
Edu Excellence, which
all,
is
all the money. And
which
they
is
were the
an
one
agent
of the university.
of the universities.
Yes.
Okay.
And all the
Because you have vast knowledge, having been the chairman, if a parent comes and says, I want a refund of all the fees, and this student had undergone the pathway studies, is that something which is tenable?
Your Honor, it is not, because it is already spent.
The money is
Because
already spent.
they already have credits
Okay.
to their names.
Okay. Now, at the risk of redundancy or repetition, I just want to, for my client's comfort, you also confirm that some universities have since refunded money for students who had not traveled.
Yes.
These monies had been paid from which account here? Is it the student's account or the trust account?
So most of the monies were paid through, okay, first of all accounts are trust accounts.
All the accounts are trust accounts.
All
yes.
accounts,
Yes.
trust accounts.
Yeah.
So when we talk about the Kenya shillings trust account,
Yeah.
which was the initial trust account,
Yes.
that is where most of the monies were paid.
Yeah.
But as part of this problem of parents complaining and having this trust and all this, and now that we have sub-accounts for
Yes.
each university managed by parents, then it was easier, we recommended, it was easier to write to the university for any refunds and be channeled to the respective account managed by the parents for that university. And this is how most of the refunds were done, with real evidence. With all
So as you
documentary
stand
evidence.
today here, there are some students or parents whose money has been refunded because they didn't travel.
Actually to the tune of 75 million Kenya shillings.
Okay.
As of 31st
Yes.
of August.
So just a last question. Again, this is purely your opinion. For the task force to have taken over, for the task force to have been formed to deal with this issue, it is fair to say the task force took over the program and ensured that at least it solved the issue that was present at the time.
Your Honor, I will disagree.
Okay.
You see, if you are leading a county where you have many people, there's something called public good.
Yes.
So with all these complaints
Yes.
that were in every corner of Uasin Gishu, we had to weigh in and be part of the solution together with the trustees without taking over from the trustees. So
Yes.
it was for public good that we were looking for
solve an
solutions
issue.
to solve an issue. But we didn't take, it is not the task force which took over.
Okay.
None of the task force members is a signatory
Yeah.
in a bank.
Okay.
All recommendations were done to the trustees
Yes.
and then forwarded to the bank.
Fair enough.
When the money was being refunded, paperwork was raised and given to the bank and actually paid according to, because the money was coming with the students' names,
Yes.
especially from Canada.
Thank you. That will be all.
Wanted to Canada,
Yes, to a university in Canada.
to a university in Canada. And you confirm, you told the court there was an understanding that in view of this overpayment, some students were to be sent to cover that.
No, Your Honor, I say
Yes.
the invoice was for 4.3 million that came from that
And there was
university.
an error, so they
But when
overpaid.
they paid double.
Yes.
When the task force asked
Yes.
the trustees,
Yes.
why when this happened, why didn't you ask for a refund?
Yes.
Their opinion was that we had plans that in future we'll take other students and we'll net off. So it's their opinion. It's not.
It's your opinion. But you confirm all the monies, much as it was an overpayment, it went to the university in Canada.
Yes.
So, an overpayment from the investigation.
So when you communicated to the university,
Yes.
the money was paid. But what was done with it
So it was
is
received by
I
the
cannot
university.
really say.
All right.
Yeah.
It's okay. I appreciate that answer. You also
At something at the inception of this program,
yes.
the money which was being paid upfront was only money for pathway, one semester, accommodation, and the one for the visas. The parents
That
had
I
to
appreciate.
continue paying the other.
Yes, that is what I'm
semesters.
saying. All along, the parents knew their obligation to pay.
So
From the out of your
those who are honest enough say
Yes.
that they were informed in a meeting in Omcraft. They keep on referring to Omcraft, that they were informed that they would need to pay fees.
So it's your opinion that there are some parents again who are not honest to come out and give the facts as they are.
I would say yes.
And this is part of the problem in this program because of dishonesty of stakeholders, parents who are to make this program succeed, correct?
Yes, Your Honor. Some of them, and they found out that they were owing the program, actually started calling some of us names.
And you confirm these parents are actually the complainants largely, most of the social media, even accusing you as tax force county government. These are the same parents who are not forthright. Somehow from your finding, without really conclusive.
I won't really say parents alone, because here we are talking about 823 students, multiplied by 2 for their parents. We are talking about over 2,500 adults.
Thank you. So there is a dishonest among a number of groups which really you may not ascertain a number or figure or attack that you are a parent or student. So that is basically what you said. I appreciate that. Thank you.
all the trustees were cooperative, including Martin.
Yes.
But when we reached the point of requiring access to the bank statement so that we can finalize this investigation, that is when Martin actually, I would say, became nearly hostile, refused.
And when you were signing the name principal trustee, could you elaborate further for understanding of the court and probably myself?
Your Honor, what we found out is that of the trustees, of the total trustees, there was one principal trustee, and this is a fully registered trustee. So there is one referred to as the principal trustee, and is actually the principal signatory in the account. The account required 2 signatories, but one of them should have been the principal trustee.
So it follows that in terms of hierarchy of responsibility, he was the most responsible for the trust in terms of hierarchy.
I would say yes. I think even in the city.
As against the detractors or those who have negative perception, so that we really get this thing well.
The reason why I say it was a success, first of all, I think the numbers grew too fast. And the fact that there were no proper controls is what really led to some of these challenges that we encountered. But the numbers,
Yes.
I think from the numbers alone,
Yes.
it was a successful program. And remember, this is, we are dealing with, if you analyze these students who have gone to Finland especially, you are talking about students who may not even qualify for Kenyan universities. So that's why associated as a successful program, save for the administrative challenges that the program encountered. But I mean, it was a win-win between, say, the county government and the government of Finland, because I think they were looking for workforce as well. Actually, all the 61 who have graduated have remained in.
And you actually also testified in evidence that you confirmed that part of the students were actually paying the trust account, even as you were continuing with the program. You are investigating. Is it fact finding, not investigation, as you said? There were some students who went there, knew that it's a good program. They started even putting money towards the trust so that the trust could pay their fees as they continued the study. Did I hear you correct?
Yes, but I can clarify, Your Honor. When it was the Kenya shilling account, it was difficult for a student in Finland or Canada to deposit money into a Kenya shilling account. So the understanding was if they made some money, they would send it to their parents so that the parents can pay into the account. But when we came up with this recommendation to the trustees, that you open euro accounts and you open Canadian dollar accounts, then it becomes visible. They're able to deposit. The students, if they make their money, most of them actually, most of these who are continuing paying fees are students making their money during vocational, during holidays, and they pay directly to their account with their names.
So to answer my question, you confirm actually students who are there put the money in the trust account in euros as they do their studies. That was my question. From the explanation, I think
but it is part of the parents are also paying from here. It's not.
I was specific about the parents and the students,
So
you can add also.
So it's a pot effort from students and from their parents. So because sometimes students may not get jobs and all that. So it's a collaborative effort between them and their parents. But irrespective of whether it's the parent paying or the student paying, the money is seen with the name of the student. And this is really what has helped to stabilize and eliminate this cross-pollination of money from one parent to the other. Student had a file. These files were available to the task force. So we asked, actually through the administrators, that let's trace all the monies that has been paid per student. And we were even helped by some of the trustees here, even actually part of them. They were helped because we had physical records and we created a database. Right now it is all those records are in soft copy. So we are getting these from files and receipts and payments which were done over time, and we try to allocate all of that, including the fees which were paid to some of the agents.
And that is
we apportioned it.
Yes, that is why.
So, Your Honor, by the time the task force was created, it was around the same period that there was a panic with all these parents. And they realized, some of them realized that they could withdraw from the program. So there was nearly a race to withdraw the money, and 125 of them were refunded their money, even with some errors, which is listed in the report, because some of them were refunded, they never even subtracted some fees which were paid to the agents. And that is really what drew down the account to very low amounts because of the near panic withdrawal by the parents and students.
But I was asking, do you have any figure?
But I want to put it this way. You see, you cannot look at a bank statement as a snapshot unless you say on that date what was available. But by the time we created all these other accounts, we never received any additional monies from parents to that trust account. We started managing the program using the other accounts.
My question was, that other account that you found, was there any cash in it? Was there any money in that account?
There were minimal amounts.
You are able to?
I'm not able to give a figure. From the people of Uasin Gishu, even some of the write-ups, even meetings, there were parents who were going to meet him with a lot of complaints, and that is how he decided to form this task force to look at it.
Going to the content of the letter, you can confirm with the court that the governor also intended that we salvage the program and have a way of improving it, because probably it was a good thing. From the content of the letter, if you remember. Do you remember the content? Or you can be reminded?
No, I remember very well. It's to look into the program,
yes,
with a focus on continuity of the program.
Thank you. So it was a good.
The governor traveled to Canada. That is Jalil, the current governor. I think in November. This was before the formation of the task force. Task force started in December after I came back. So we didn't really, at that time, a lot of things were not understood around this program. We had, as a task force, had to listen to all the stakeholders. That's when we started now understanding the program and coming up with short-term recommendations to salvage. Let me use actually the word to salvage children from being returned from Finland and Canada, and additional children who are in the pipeline being able to travel.
Which was a good thing, Engineer Barorot. Okay, but it was signed during the current government.
I think, Your Honor, I'll stay with what is written in that task force report. We were focusing more on solving problems, not dealing with legally. So we didn't really put energy to.
Okay, moving on.
Account.
Yes.
So to the trust account, but remember some of the students didn't pay to the trust account. But the total amount which actually, and this is what we got from the trustees, was close to 1 billion shillings.
It was close to 1 billion.
1 billion.
So when you say there are those students who didn't deposit to the trust account, was there any other account that the money was being deposited to?
Prior to opening the additional sub-accounts managed by parents, there was no other account. There was an attempt to create a Euro account by the trustees, but there were no monies deposited in it.
So